That is passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 36.
Item 36, sustain or override the mayor's veto of ordinance number 8316, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the city, repealing ordinance number 3616, authorizing the issuance of its sales tax revenue bonds and other actions related thereto. Action taken at the City Council meeting on Tuesday, July 19, 2016. A motion was made by Council Member Greg Neitzert and seconded by Council Member Michelle Erpenbach to adopt said ordinance number 8316. Vote to adopt. Roll call. Yeses. Pat Starr, Theresa Stehly, Christine M. Erickson, Greg Neitzert, Marshall Selberg, 5. Noes. Michelle Erpenbach, Rick Kiley, Rex Rolfing, 3. Motion passed. Pursuant to the City Charter, Section 3.04, Mayor Mike T. Huther vetoed said ordinance number 8316.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to try to give you some idea of what's going to transpire next. I've received some coaching from City Attorney David Fifley, who's to my left. And David, if I miss anything, you just let me know. Councilors and to the people of Sioux Falls, here's what will happen. It has been read. Now what will happen, I'm going to have the City Attorney provide the councilors with to try to explain the voting procedure. Okay, we'll do that. Then, this is my first veto. I will briefly outline the reason for my veto. It will be brief. Then, councilors, we're going to go to public input, and that's folks where you'll have an opportunity to engage the council on this particular topic. And then after that is completed, then it goes to the council. The councilors from the prevailing side, and that was those who voted yes to adopt ordinance number 8316. If one of them so chooses, they would make another motion to approve ordinance number 8316. And then, of course, there would be a second to that if somebody deemed fit. Then there will be debate and dialogue amongst the council, okay? And then when that's completed, there will be a vote. And then, we'll see how that goes. And then we'll go to item number 37. David, does that sound fair? Sounds fair? Point of order. Yes, Council Chair Rolfing.
I'm sorry. Seems to me that we should have a motion to approve, because if there's not a second, there's no reason to go ahead with any of what you just said. Right, so I would think that would be first on the agenda, but it's not. Okay, I'm being. That's fine.
Thank you. I'm learning too.
Okay.
But thank you very much, Council Chair Rolfing. Appreciate that. So first, I'm going to ask David to provide an explanation of the voting procedure, if that'd be appropriate. David?
Thank you, Mayor. The charter requires that if an ordinance or a resolution is vetoed by the mayor, that then the item is considered at the next regular meeting of the City Council, and that is this meeting. Any ordinance requires ordinarily 5 affirmative votes of the council. However, when an ordinance is vetoed, it takes 6 votes of the council to affirm the ordinance in order to what they would say is override the veto.
David, thank you. And councilors and to the people of Sioux Falls, this is my first veto. I will be brief. I'll just explain why I made the veto decision. And when it comes to the design and construction of a new Sioux Falls administration building, my points are as follows. Our city is growing, and with it comes a demand for additional services and employees. The need is real and corroborated by independent experts. Due diligence in collaboration with the City Council has been going on for at least a decade. The investment makes financial sense now and in the future. The building will create a work environment that will improve the collaboration, the productivity, and the morale of city employees. The time to build the new building is now. As we have a locked-in price, interest rates are very low, and continued leasing will only add to the expense with no real return. The building will accommodate growth for the next 50 years, and it will be built to last for at least 100 years. The investment will dramatically enhance Van Ep's Park possibilities and will create economic development opportunities in the surrounding area. The site is located in an established cluster of other city-owned buildings and is very near Minnehaha County facilities as well, creating a local government services corridor for the efficient delivery of government services to the local taxpayers. There's more that I shared with the City Council in a very, very long document. I'm not going to go through that. I don't think that's necessary, but I wanted to give just a brief explanation on why I chose to veto the work of the council at this particular time. Councilors, thank you for that opportunity to engage you and the people of Sioux Falls. Now, welcome, folks. I know there's some folks who wanted to talk about this topic with the council as well. This is that opportunity to do that. Really, same rules apply. We'd ask you to state your name, please. Keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. There is one other thing that takes place in a topic like this. The council, over the years, they have coached me and they've tried to help the citizens of Sioux Falls understand that repeating the same comment over and over again, certainly understand that some folks agree with the same comments. That's fair. But for the purposes of the meeting and the purposes of the council, they would ask that your comments be unique, if at all possible. And with that in mind, I'll do my best to try to capture those comments as the public is coming forth, and then we'll go from there. So welcome. Good to have you here. Folks, Roger.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Jerry Fromm. I'm with Henry Carlson Company. In the last few weeks, there's been a lot of discussion about what is the cost of this building, what is the cost per square foot of this proposed city admin building. And I hope tonight that I can try to set the record straight and try to perhaps disband some of the rumors that are going around. People in my industry have called me and asked me, how can this building cost $400 per square foot or $500 per square foot? And I just want to very briefly try to, to the best of my ability, describe what the cost per square foot is per the estimates that we've prepared for the city. The total building size, as we've discussed, is 80,000 square feet. That includes the lower level, first floor, second floor, a third floor that would remain a shell, and provisions for a fourth floor. So that's how we come to 80,000 square feet. I've broke out the cost of the project in the simplest terms that I can. The site work, which includes improvements to Van Ep's Park and DAKOTA Avenue along the property front of the project, is about $15 per square foot. That's the $1.2 million divided by 80,000 square feet, the total square footage of the building. The lower level of the building, which is about 20,000 square feet, it includes 39 parking stalls and about 8,000 square feet of other items, storage, mechanical and electrical space, and locker rooms. These areas are areas that are essential to support the building. So it's not as simple as saying, let's get rid of the parking and not have a basement. There's 8,000 square feet of something else somewhere else in the building, much more expensive space in the building that would have to be modified. So this is an integral part of the project as it's designed today. The first and second floor currently planned to be finished office space. I think that's pretty straightforward, 40,000 square feet. The $10,498,000 divided by 40,000 square feet is how we come up with the $265 per square foot of finished office space. The third floor shell, which would remain unfinished, it would be heated. There would be a minimum amount of light to meet current code, fire alarm, those types of things. And preparations for a fourth floor. That adds $165 per square foot. That is the 20,000 square feet. We're dividing the 3 million by that 20,000 square feet there. That's the investment that you're putting into this building for future growth of the third floor and of potentially a fourth floor. There's project contingency at this point. We're at schematic design, that's 7%. That's a very prudent number to be at this point in a project like this. That's how we arrive at the construction cost of $18,426,000, $233 per square foot for an institutional building designed the way this building has been designed is a very fair number, cost per square foot. There's other project costs that include design costs, FFE, and other owner costs that go into the building, and those costs would go into any project, whether it be a renovation, purchasing a building and having to fit it out with new furniture, those types of things, and paying for architect services and engineering services. So I hope that that this kind of helps clear the water on what the actual cost of this proposed project is. The total project cost is $21.9 million. Divided by 80,000 square feet is $274,000 per square foot. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
I'm Roger Elgersmith from Sioux Falls. I look at this and I see there's only 2 usable floors in the 300 building at 6 usable floors, which suggests it's quite a bit more space. If you get quite a bit more space for about the same money, then per square foot it's a lot cheaper. And if you get a lot more space, you can lease out some of it to current renters or lease them out to the county. And for the same cost, you get rental income to help pay off the bills. So I think fiscally it's a whole lot better to buy the bigger building, which will last you longer into the future. And this huge amount of remodeling costs, when you're making an office building into an office building, I question how much of the remodeling is needed. I've been in a few of the offices there, and there's various size offices, and you got various size departments, and a lot of them could just fit in what's there with almost no remodeling. And so I heard with a new building you're going to have high ceilings because it impresses millennials and they like to feel good about themselves. When I was in my 20s, we felt good about ourselves because we were good people and did a good job. You know, I was teaching adult Sunday school to people my parents and grandparents' age at 23, and it's not because the ceiling was high in church. It's because I was good at it. You know, if you want to attract arrogant people or if you want to attract people that are into doing a good job, you don't need a high ceiling. I mean, if you can afford it, that's probably cool and nice and whatever. But also the last 2 mayors and the last 2 20-some council people have ballooned the amount of debt this city has. And we're no longer a AAA rating. We're a fairly good rating, and compared to most cities in this country, we're rather good. But comparing to others isn't what makes people great. If you just concentrate on doing as good as you can. I think this is a small enough project that if you reduce the remodel cost a little, you can just run it through the CIP, maybe take one project, move it back here, and you don't have to add any debt. And so if this petition goes through, you could still have a building. Things in the CIP are 5 years, and these have been adjusted a little before. When I look at amount of debt, it don't look bad yet. But if you look at what other things pull Sioux Falls economy up and down, the ag economy is one of the biggest things, and that's down now. And the national economy isn't as good as here because, I mean, other cities aren't doing as good as us. They're not going to pull us up. These other influences are more likely to slow us down, and the sales tax revenue has slowed down a little this year already. In the world economy, you look at Europe, the best economy is Germany, and I just heard that Deutsche Bank is basically broke. So the world economy could pull this down too. So having more debt just because other cities have more than us doesn't mean it's safe to just add on more debt. I farmed through the farm crisis, started out thinking we can borrow a lot of money, the economy is going great, farmers will finally make as much money as other people, and then it all fell apart. So I've had experiences where it looked good, and we were good at doing good at the time. But if everything around you isn't doing as good, you can't just assume they're going to be lifting you up. So I think buying the 300 building, not raising the ceilings in it, you know, reducing that amount of the cost of the remodel, and have a building that'll last you longer and produce rent income in the meantime is the wise choice. Thank you.
Roger, thank you. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Dan Daly, Sioux Falls. I'm concerned about the irregularities. The petition process has less than 2 weeks. The citizens are misinformed. They have not had a chance to review this. This is a tidy sum that should go to a public vote. City debt is worrisome. It's a matter of why are you rushing this through? Can't we just hold off a little longer and do some more investigation? Can't you do due process? I'm concerned there's one contractor. I'm concerned who's the landowner. This is a public project subject to these terms. Counselors are exempt from your decision, but you're probably going to be testifying in court for years to come if you make a bad decision. Give us time. Perhaps it's necessary. I haven't done enough background because I don't have time. A third of city employees live out of town. They don't even live here. Why do they need cushy offices? If they'll move to town, we'll give them time. And then we can have a very nice city building where everyone can go. It's public property. But that's what I have to say. I feel that there's just too many irregularities. It deserves to be knocked down for the moment. It can be brought back. I'm not opposed to it. There's just too many irregularities, too many problems that will crop up later. I'd like to see competitive bids. Thank you.
Welcome.
Mayor, council, citizens. My name is Jeff Scherschlicht, a lifelong resident of Sioux Falls, property owner, business person, and been called a cheerleader for Sioux Falls. I'm proud of our community. We're progressive, we're vibrant, we're attractive because we take good care of our stuff, and we're growing. Why? Because there's been leaders like you all for many decades that have been forward-looking, that have been looking long-term, that have been progressive. We've done a great job in this community. Why? It's not an accident why we are as successful as we are, because we've looked at good long-term decisions, infrastructure decisions, airport decisions, building the right airport, the quality of our schools, the quality of our quality of life items like the pavilion, the event center. All of these things took great leaders like you that looked long-term and didn't just look at little things that just might save a few dollars right now, but looked at the long-term and made those type of investments. All of these takes money, takes planning, but also smart allocation of these resources. Sioux Falls must stay progressive. The facts, as I understand them or have read, seem to be pretty clear. They've been laid out for over a decade. The city finances, I don't profess to have any expertise in that, but I did find out that we've got a good bond rating, that our debt from a per capita basis certainly is better than many of our peers. So at the same time, I believe that making good investments long-term makes sense. So no debt is certainly a great thing, but sometimes you have to invest. I also can speak to the concept of quality, attractive office space, and that attracting quality employees. We're only as good as the people that lead this community, the people that work for our community, that work for our businesses. I find today that the key is that you do have to provide them a quality workspace, something they feel good about, that helps attract, and that also helps retain talent. And I believe that has worked for my business and many other businesses. I encourage the Sioux Falls leadership to not fall victim to political or philosophical gridlock, to not compromise, or inability to move our community forward. I'm sick and tired of the federal government and what's going on. I don't want to see that happen to us here in Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls has created a great community by always looking forward, making a commitment to quality, taking calculated risks, and staying positive. I encourage this body to not override the mayor's veto, but to move on to our numerous other challenges, to stay progressive and lead the city into the next decade on a positive and progressive note. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. Welcome.
Carol Flower, Sioux Falls. I didn't sign in ahead of time. I didn't see the list. I was born in Sioux Falls. I lived in Sioux Falls until I graduated from college, and I went away to graduate school, and then I lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan for 25 years. Then moved to Montana for a short time until my mother became ill and moved back to Sioux Falls. So this is now the beginning of my 20th year back in Sioux Falls. And so I just want to say it's been interesting coming back to Sioux Falls and seeing the changes. About 6 or 7 years ago, I had the opportunity to go to work for a short time in a small town, Pleasanton, California, on the East Bay area. I was impressed with this town. It was such a beautiful town that when I came back, I looked on their website and I wanted to find a little bit more about them. And what I read just really astonished me, because what they said at that time was, this is a community that believed in certain principles. They had about 12 principles. They promoted these in the schools. They promoted them in the community. Every city council meeting started with a discussion of how to implement whatever the principle happened to be. They were principles of integrity, honesty, compassion, caring. And when I read further, I was really astonished by one sentence that they had, and they said, when there is a need in this community, we find a way to make it taken care of. And I was so impressed with that. And this past May, I had an opportunity to go back to California and work. And so my brother and I drove over to this community, and I said, I want to see this place again. I was so impressed with it. And again, the minute I got there, I just had this overwhelming feeling that this is a community that cares about the people in the community. And it was interesting because my brother, who lives in Palo Alto, got the same feeling, so much so that after I left California, he went back just to confirm his feelings. Now, why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because I am not a political person, but once in a while when there's an issue that I'm interested in, and there's an issue that's contested, an issue that's a big spending issue, I've come to meetings and I get the feeling that very often the city council really, they listen, but they ignore what people are saying to them. And this is borne out to me over the 20 years I've been here by the number of petition drives that have been done by people wanting to make their voices heard in this community. Now, this is this building is a contentious issue. Apparently, it's a costly issue. The way it's going to be paid for apparently is an issue. And what I would like to ask the council, and this is a question, a rhetorical question, granted, but if you really truly want to know what the people in Sioux Falls want in this regard, why not have them vote on it? And so I just respectfully submit to you that if you really won't care about what people want, that this is a way to do it. Thank you.
Carol, thank you very much. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Jim Entman, and I also am a citizen and a business owner here in Sioux Falls, and by the way, a former city councilman here in Sioux Falls. It really was an honor and a privilege to serve the citizens of Sioux Falls by serving on the city council. And I do know that there are a lot of tough decisions that are made, but at the end of the day, we make those decisions with the facts that we have that are provided to us by the teams that we have, our own interest in the projects, the programs, and at the end of the day, we do have to draw a line in the sand and make a decision. That's what we're hired to do. If it was so easy as to put every task to a vote, there would be no need for a city council, and everybody would be clamoring to have this position that you all hold, that I really think was one of the best things that I ever did in my life. That being said, Mayor Huther and City Council, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to the issues at hand. You know, does the city build a new administration building? And where should it go? If I remember correctly, shortly after the Council Members Erpenbach and Rolfing and Aguilar and I were elected, Mayor Huther started a space needs assessment of city facilities similar to the study Mayor Munson did during his administration, the previous administration. 2 different mayors and 2 separate space need assessments came to the same conclusion. Our city needs additional space to meet the needs of our citizens today and for years to come. In my business, we call this customer service. In the 41 years that I have been in business, I've had to make the decision to build on 5 different occasions. In every case, it was to meet the growing demands of my customers, to provide them with more services and more products, and helpfully create what we call customers for life. Sometimes we did not need to add employees, but just needed more room, and sometimes because our business was growing, we needed to meet the demands and we needed to meet the customers. We had to add additional staff. Every time I built, I had to consider a number of things. And I believe the city has to consider those things too, and they have considered those. If I build a new facility, where is the best place to build it? To best serve my customers, will I need to buy the land? What size building do I need and what amenities do I need so my teams can do their jobs? And what about the customer experience, our citizen experience? What can I afford and how do I finance a project? Contrary to what a lot of you might think, we in business very seldom have the cash to build a building or do remodeling, and we also have to go out and seek funding in order to do this. What I have learned is that you need a good group of advisors in order to help you make these decisions. Because in my world, I sell motorcycles, right? That's what I'm at. It's about customer service. I don't build buildings. I don't worry about financing as far as paying. Well, I do worry about paying for the buildings because ultimately we all have to. But that's why you have good partners. And what I mean by that is that you do need to have good partners and good advisors. In business, you need to have a great business banker that understands you and appreciates your credibility and understands what their needs are to secure their money. You have to have a good accounting team. You know, they need to help build a performance that's going to show us how we're going to pay for the building, how much time it takes, and they have to help us identify what the ROI is, what our return on investment is for that property, and how long is it going to take to pay for it. You also need a design firm and a builder that you can trust. And you have to have a great attorney to help with contracts and to help navigate, believe it or not, municipal requirements and issues that come up in dealing with any city or any government entity. So we do create teams, and I believe, Mayor, that I applaud you, and I applaud the team that you have put together, including the consultants, city councilors that served on the respective committees and helped in this process, and of course our city employees. By the way, a majority of our city employees are citizens of Sioux Falls, and they want the best for our city also. You had a great team, you put together a great team, and again, I was really hoping, in the back of my mind that you would veto the decision that came down and did it. I do believe, like Jeff does, that now is the time. We need to be progressive. You had the team put together. You had great financing sources. You figured out a way of paying for it. You had people that made the assessments. It was great.
Thank you very much.
Really? Already?
Sorry.
Oh, I don't own these microphones, do I, Mayor?
Counselor, thank you, though. Welcome.
For the record, George Hahn, lifelong resident of Sioux Falls. I can't add an awful lot to what both Jeff and Jim have said quite eloquently. Jeff, you stole some of my lines, man. We need the government corridor. We need the space. There's never been a question about that. Some of these other superfluous issues are just that. They're superfluous. They should not be the reasons this project is killed. We need quality office space. I've had the luxury of good office space for 20 years. For the previous 20 years, I don't know how I made it through. And Michelle, you alluded to being in a cube farm for 20 years. Would you wish that on any city employee? Marshall, you've had very good office space, and your husband has too. We all happen to be in the real estate business. You're not going to get employees' satisfaction if you have crappy office space. And some of the space right now that city employees are in, I wouldn't office there. I simply wouldn't. And you're not going to expect the current generation to continue with that, nor subsequent generations to put up with that. We also need to have space that is conducive to hiring those who are disabled. We right now don't have a lot of ADA capacity in many respects to hire disabled veterans, and we need to start putting a push on that. We owe that to our veterans in every conceivable respect. We've got 4 new people on the council. A lot of tough issues have come up in the first couple of months. I respect that. But if you'd run on a platform of, oh, I'm going to be a speed bumper, I'm going to vote this down, or I'm going to be a beginner, if that had been your platform, none of you would have been elected. I think everybody's got to pull together for what is beneficial for the community today, tomorrow, and 20 years from now, when every city employee has been replaced by somebody younger, expecting more out of their jobs, and who can be retained with pride and dignity. I think that's something we've got to emphasize across the board, that not just here in the council, but in every office and city hall, pride and dignity are a part of the workplace, and the workplace needs to be conducive to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hahn. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Okay, I read this week that people...
If I just your name, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Linda Nielsen.
Thank you, Linda. Appreciate it.
East Side. I read this week that people can always be brought to the bidding of their leaders. That's easy. All you have to do is convince them that they're being attacked. That was a quote from Hermann Goering, about 1930 or somewhere in that neighborhood. I believe that some of our leaders are trying to convince us that we are being attacked by wanting something better for the city administration building. Like I heard before, that you want good employees, you have good buildings to put them into. You don't want to put them in the basement and expect them to stay. Therefore, I feel that we're being driven by fear that the government's attacking us, and that the people want things. They don't want to be bothered with tickets, permits, licenses, and fines, city attorneys. They don't want to be bothered by these things. We want them scattered all over the city in various different buildings. So when you come and you look for somebody, you can say, oh, well, yeah, you got to go down here and around the corner and over there and across the street and up the hall. Why, we need it in one building where if you have a problem, you can go in, and you're in the wrong room, they'll send you to the right room. You don't have to go all over town to find it. I also liken it to a family that lives in a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, and their family's growing. As their family grows, they have an option. They can rent their kids out to 3 other apartments, maybe in 3 different buildings, or they can take a leap of faith and buy a house and live in it, and grow, and continue to expand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Thank you. Welcome.
Scott Erickson, Sioux Falls. I'd have to say that I agree with Jim Entenman for once. He said that you are elected to lead. I thought you guys did that. You voted 5-3 that you wanted to stop the bonding. You did that. Then the mayor vetoed it. The 2 times before that it was voted, it was a tie vote. He broke the tie. I think you led. But I have to disagree with Mr. Entenman. There's no comparison between owning a motorcycle dealership and running a city. And I think that we need to take a look at the way we look at being elected officials. The mayor said in his press conference when he did the veto that we are elected to get things done. I hope that when I vote for someone, that isn't their objective. Your objective is to serve and to make good decisions. The 5 councilors that voted to stop this bond, and Christine was very clear, are not against the city administration building at all. They want options. They want it to be more prudent, more fiscally responsible. That's what they want. And coming up here and saying that they're against it, that is not the case at all. I hope our city employees actually have good work environment, because that makes them better city employees. So let's be clear about that. But to say to get things done is a very jaded view of being an elected official. We elect you to serve us, which can mean stopping projects that we don't need. $25 million buildings that aren't even finished. I can't even imagine the millions of dollars this building would cost us down the road when we start having to add to it, if we needed to. You were elected to sometimes put the brakes on. And as I had brought up before, and as a caller did on the Greg Belford show lately to the mayor, if this project was talked about for so long and so important, why did we build a $100 million event center and a $25 million aquatic center before we built this building? We seemed to didn't care. We didn't care about city employees at that point. All we cared about was ourselves. We were very selfish to say that we're going to build an entertainment complex and a pool. Kind of selfish. How do the city employees feel about that? And now all of a sudden we say, well, since we got what we wanted, now we're concerned about you. And by the way, we got to borrow the money to do it. I also find it ironic that the 3 councilors who voted against this are the 3 that I often hear from many people never return phone calls or emails. The mayor said the other day that he had never heard of this petition drive. Been living under a rock? It's been on every single TV station and the newspaper. And then he said, talk to Rex, talk to Kiley, talk to Michelle. They didn't return phone calls to 2 different TV stations. The 5 councilors who voted this down and want options, listen to the constituents. They listened. They're doing their job. They voted to stop this. The 3 others and the mayor are not listening. Citizens don't want this. They want us to look at other options. Remodeling existing buildings, buying a used building. There's all kinds of things we could do and save millions and millions of dollars. And as Roger brought up, you could take money out of the CIP each year to remodel stuff in the year. So please, I'm hoping one of the 3 of you change your vote tonight. That's probably not going to happen, but I hope you do. And I hope you put this to rest so we don't have to go through an election and we could save the taxpayers even more money. Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome. I'm James Eisbrand, Sioux Falls City resident. Thank you to the council for this time to speak to you tonight. It's the first time I've been here since the 4 new council members got elected, so congratulations. Thanks for your service. And I'm here to support the mayor's veto because as a citizen, like tonight, the mayor always talked about there's city business that sometimes can be boring. I think this issue, to me, as a citizen, is boring. It should just be, it's been looked at. You've all had a chance to make your decision. I'm not going to change anybody's vote tonight, but I think that, I've had the privilege of since day one when Gary Hansen dropped the gavel, I remember being over in City Hall when they had the council meetings there. And I've seen the city of Sioux Falls grow. I'm 54. I just turned 54 on Saturday. And my golf partner says, hey, Jim, don't feel bad about getting old. 6 years from now, we can hit from the senior box tees. So I was like, yeah, you know, like tonight I wore my best golf shirt. I don't own a Hawaiian shirt. But I thought, you know, I should be honored to be here and speak to you about, you know, all the same things that we've all talked about tonight. I went to a function Saturday with the former mayor, and he told me what he thought about it. I'm not going to say what he said, but I talked to a former council member, and I can at least give you a hint. Pat Starr took his spot. They all said the same things. It's needed. This needs to happen. Yeah, we don't agree on where. Yeah, it would be great to have a corridor down Dakota Avenue because we know the Minnehaha County Courthouse is there. I don't know what you're going to do about that building in between because it's grandfathered in, which I don't understand about that grandfathering rule. That makes life interesting when you're forward thinking about building that corridor. But I mean, there's so many positives about what everybody agrees on. We need the office space for these workers. And yes, it has to be funded. Yeah, it's not perfect, but you know, if you look at it, all the positives of doing it now, you know, it's a presidential election year. We don't know what the economy is going to do. Come November, we don't know. You know, the world's a interesting place these days economically. Like the one gentleman said, farm economy, there's all these things that can happen that can change the plans that the mayor and the staff have put forward today. But I think the first time he's ever vetoed, that's what got my attention. It's like, why did the mayor veto this? It's like, well, it's an important issue. To me, it's just one of those, it's a big ticket item, but it's one of those boring, necessary things, infrastructure, and it would be a privilege for the city workers to have this new building. There's room for expansion. I don't agree with the other gentleman talking about the 300 building lasting longer. I would think that Henry Carlson could build a better building that would last longer than the 300 building that's been there for a while. I mean, there's just all these positives that seem to outweigh the negatives for trying to change the veto. So I would urge the council members tonight, when you vote on this, vote with reason, your heart, and what us people expect of you. I went to this national night out in my neighborhood at 3rd and Holbrook. That's Councilman Greg Neitzert's district. It was great to see the people there, and I talked to some people there. They didn't even care about what you guys are going to vote about tonight. They didn't care. So these people saying that they're all signing up for this petition, you know, my wife reads South Dakota. She told me about it. I'm like, so I don't think we need to have a petition for every vote. I know it's a big ticket item, but I think you should move forward and be progressive like the two businessmen who I respect, the former councilman Jim Entenman and Serslick from the building that he owns downtown. These guys know. Mayor Heather knows. He's had a professional staff. Mayor Munson had the same kind of meeting with experts on what we need to do. So let's just do it. Yeah, it's a hard decision. I respect you for making that decision. I respect you for, you know, slowing it down and taking a time out. But tonight it's time to not override the veto, move forward, because the citizens I talked to and the people that I represent, just from speaking to them tonight, didn't feel some of the way the other people testified. So I appreciate your time and good luck with your vote.
Thank you, James. Appreciate that. Mr. Dennison, I will let you know that I did tell the people of Sioux Falls and the people in this room in the beginning of the meeting that if you're going to discuss this potential topic, to wait until the end. You made the decision to do it at the beginning. I understand that. You spoke 4 minutes, so with that in mind, we will allow you to speak again, but you've got a minute.
I can buzz through it pretty fast, but by the same token, I was discussing a petition drive. I was not talking about your veto. I never mentioned your veto once.
Mr. Dennison.
And so what I'm doing is now going to just give some impressions of what some people have talked about. Because I've probably talked to more people in Sioux Falls about this project than anyone. And so you can shut the speaker off on me at any time you want, and that's fine. But the things I've learned in the past few days talking with hundreds of people, the growth of government is not a justifiable excuse for this project. The current design is not a customer service friendly building. Collaboration with only city employees, ignoring the similar collaboration needs of the county and state is a shame. The swamp, calling that basement room the swamp, is a degrading term that any HR pro I've ever worked with would find disgusting. Why not encourage a multi-story business building in that land so it can pay taxes to pay for government? Figure out a way to work with counties. The $275 per square foot really needs to add the value of the land at about $40 per square foot or more, or about $315. The people signing petitions are of every economic group and part of town, and no part of this is to discourage growth. The Cube Farm is what the current city is planning to build.
Mr. Danson.
Over a decade,
Mr. Danson, thank you,
over
sir.
a decade story is bogus. The land was purchased in 2007 when the post office project failed. In 2014 election, Mr. Mayor, you said there was no need for more office space.
Mr. Danson.
And the last point is, what was magical about in 2015 to drop this building on a previous council without warning? Thank you.
Councilors, I did my best. Sorry. Hope you understand. I tried. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. Sioux Falls. I also am going out taking signatures. The only time somebody says that they can't sign the petition is because they're not a registered voter. I'm not having problems getting signatures. I'm also talking to a lot of people that are struggling in town. The elderly people are having problems in town. They're having problems buying food. They're having problems paying their rent because it goes up every year because of taxes. The taxes go up, the landlord raises the rent. Water goes up, electricity goes up, phone bill goes up, nothing goes down. Social Security has not had a raise for, I think, 2 to 3 years. These people are struggling in this town. When we come out and we say, well, we built the pavilion, we made that big jump, but we subsidize it $1.3 million. That's put on the citizens of Sioux Falls. The swimming pool is going to have a subsidy. We say $500,000, but it could be $1 million, it could be $2 million, who knows? We look at the event center, we say it's making money, but what is the arena making? That's the question. A lot of people ask that question. They're not saying that we don't need an administrative building. It says that we got to be a little bit more, to look at things a little different. The good part about it is everybody, again, we put our pants on, we put our shoes on the same. We can sit and smile all we want. But again, the city council is here for the citizens of Sioux Falls. And like I say, I've never been turned down on somebody signing this petition, other than they're not registered to vote. And a lot of people say, well, I really don't want to vote because government's crooked. Well, I believe that too. Out of Washington and just looking what goes on here, it is crooked. And I expect people to come in, business people to come in and say how great things are and everything, which it might be great for them. People with money, it's great for them because they have the money to invest. But when you have people that are suffering outside this building, we pushed all the people that, homeless people to the east side. Those people are suffering. What have we done for them? We keep pushing them and pushing them and pushing them. Pretty soon we're not going to be able to push them too much further, otherwise they're going to be in the river. But we got to start thinking about everybody in this town. We got to think about the people that are suffering in this town, and we got to get things in order.
Thank you. Folks, sir, and please come forward. Please come forward. I just want to let you know that we've had a really good dialogue. We started about 7:57. And, sir, I'm definitely going to let you speak, so thank you. I just want to give you kind of a summary of where we're at so far, okay? We've had 12 different speakers. It looks like it's about, 6 I didn't poll these folks, so I don't know how they'd vote. But just from listening to their comments, it was like there was kind of 6 for and 6 against. Try to give you some understanding of what we've heard so far. And I'm really proud of the speakers, because I think they've done a good job giving us unique comments, okay? So just let me give you a flavor, sir, and again, coming back. Why don't I start with those who are against the building proceeding? We could move into an existing business as is, for example, the 300 building, for example. The high ceilings, for example, are not important to, employees. To talk about too much debt, or we shouldn't add additional debt. The world and national economy is struggling right now, and that, we should pay attention to the agriculture economy here in South Dakota, because it makes a big impact here on Sioux Falls. Discussion about a need for a vote. Folks are not opposed to doing a vote and are signing petitions. Time needed for more due diligence. There was a comment made that city employees that don't live here don't need good work environments. We should be more prudent, more fiscally responsible. Sometimes putting the brakes on is a good thing. The councilors that support the building and the mayor, they're not listening to the citizens. Growth of government is not justifiable. The design is not good of the proposed building. We should find a way to generate rent from a building that we either lease or build. The cost per square foot, as relayed by the administration, is not reasonable. Citizen expenses are going up. We should look at those things that we're subsidizing elsewhere in government, because ultimately it's the citizens that are impacted. And there's other priorities, such as homelessness that's out there and things like that. Those that were in favor of building the new building or the administration building, they've had comments like this. The cost per square foot is reasonable and fair. There was this actual dollar amount given tonight by one of the citizens. We need to continue to be forward-thinking, be progressive, meeting long-terms, doing long-term investing is good for the city. Debt is reasonable here in the city of Sioux Falls, and we've got a good bond rating. It will attract employees, and we need to provide a good quality workplace for our people. Don't follow the lead of federal government and the stuff going on there, and stay positive, here in Sioux Falls. Let's get this done and then move on to other challenges that the city faces. When there's a need in the community, we should tackle it. There was talk about, the counselors and how counselors are hired or elected to make tough decisions. Talk about needing additional space. We've needed it before and we need it now. It'll be a customer service improvement and improve the citizen experience. The team that put together this proposal that we've been talking about was solid. We need a government corridor. Some of the existing space for our city employees are unsuitable. And then there was talk about creating a one-stop shop to get government service versus going all over town. And then finally, hey, nothing's perfect, but the positives outweigh the negatives on this particular case. So again, proud of you folks. You've done a really good job giving us all unique perspective. And so welcome, sir.
John Beasley, Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
And sir, your first name?
John.
John. Thank you, John. Welcome.
And speaking of Mayor Munson, I worked at Longfellow for 32 years and took him downstairs and showed him the building. And this was no mansion, Longfellow School. It's not a school no more. I was the last janitor in that building. And I took him downstairs and to my office area, and he said, you know, this building here is going to last for a long time. You could see the old stone in the cement around it, and that's what the tunnels look like down below. And I'm 65 years old. My wife's 74. And we're on Social Security. And we have not been to your event center. And I don't think a whale will fit in the aquatic center. So I probably won't be there. And, you know, I probably will never set a foot in that building that you're going to want to build. And I'm sorry. But I think the streets need to be done more. Because I deliver pizza part-time. And I've been on a lot of streets that are just tremendous. And I'll give you one street, Geneva. Genevine, whatever. It's a block off Bonson. That was a mess this spring. I haven't been on it lately because nobody's ordered pizza. Or the people that did order, they don't live there no more. And so I don't know. But, you know, the streets, I think, need to be more done and taken care of better than building a brand new building.
John, thank you very much for coming tonight. Appreciate it. Well, folks, thank you. Very, very good dialogue. Really appreciate it. It's been very, very productive. And thanks for being so professional, too. I really appreciate it. Council,
Mr.
now,
Mayor.
yes, Councilor Erickson.
Make a motion to approve ordinance number 83-16.
Second. Neitzert.
Councilor Erickson's made a motion to adopt ordinance number 8316, seconded by Councilor Neitzert. Councilor Erickson.
Thank you. You know, I know we've been talking about this for some time. Tonight, I certainly know what will happen tonight. I know the outcome. I think we all do. That's what you do when you do your homework. So I'm not going to waste a lot of time. Unfortunately, you know, we've heard a lot about taking hard votes. I've been in this gig in the state level and the city level. I've made a lot of hard votes. I've had to look people in the face and vote a different way than what they wanted me to. So I know what it takes to make a hard vote. A hard vote to one person and a hard vote to somebody else are two entirely different things. I've stayed firm in my position throughout this time. We have heard that this has not been, we've seen that this has not been a slam dunk deal. This hasn't been a 7-1 vote, an 8-0 vote. It has not had consensus. It's had two mayor tie-breaking votes. It's now had the mayor's veto. The intent with pausing this project and having the new council vote on it was twofold. One, I wanted to make sure that the new council had the opportunity to vote on this because it will tie our hands for years to come and councilors' hands for years to come with budgetary restraints. There will be consequences that come along with the budgeting timeframe. So I wanted to make sure that those involved had the ability to have a voice in that since it happened so close to the new election. It didn't happen 8 months ago, 9 months ago. It was so close to the election timeframe. So there was intent with that too. The other intent was to really start over with all parties around the table so we could have collaboration from the start and not from a project already off and gone from the train station. It's not going to happen. I understand that. I respect the process. I am disappointed, but that's the way that this works. I do appreciate all the input and all the vetting that has taken place over the last couple of years. You know, we hear a lot about numbers. We hear about the truth of the numbers and all of these things. We can all talk about numbers that work in our favor here and there. And I do believe there's been misinformation along the ways on all sides. But I'm happy that the effort was tried. I'm happy with the fact that the county, the city, and the state had the opportunity to restart a collaborative effort from the beginning to address space needs. And unfortunately, that won't take place now. But I'm hopeful that in the future, this council and councils to come will always have in mind all governmental entities when we start a project to make them the most efficient and effective for the taxpayers at the end of the day. Thank you.
Councilor Neitzert. Sir.
Okay. The vote that's going to happen tonight is unprecedented. We're about to go down a path where the executive branch bonds $25 million over the will of the legislative branch. No council has supported this project. It has survived only with 2 tie-breaking votes of the mayor and a veto of its repeal. This has not been discussed publicly for years. The first mention of needing a new building never came until April 14th, 2015. Up until then, there was no hint that we needed a new building. Because of softening sales tax revenue, the administration is, in their words, waiting on initiatives where prudent. One of the projects they have delayed is the remodel of the northwest corner of City Hall on the ground floor. If you look into that space, you will see prime office space currently filled with junk and boxes. This remodel was budgeted for $100,000 and scheduled for this year. If the need is so urgent, why delay this project? Why would we delay a $100,000 project because it's prudent, but then go into debt $25 million to build more office space? It makes no sense. The administration is taking steps to manage with slower growth, in their words. Why in the world would we bond $25 million now? Where is the urgency? We plan to hire 6 new employees in 2017. It sounds like none of them will work in an administrative building. 75% of new employees will never work in an administrative building. There is no leasing problem. Let me repeat, there is no leasing problem. We lease one building, the city attorney building. The lease on that building is $120,000 a year. You don't spend $25 million to solve a $120,000 problem. The first year debt service on the new building is $1 million, enough to pay for the lease on that building for 9 years. What you haven't been told is that we have an option to purchase this building and right of first refusal. We can own that building today for $1.2 million. The first year of debt service on the new building would almost buy the city attorney building. It's interesting to note the city attorney loves this building, and it's in a perfect location across the street from City Hall and a block from Carnegie Town Hall. If leasing is a huge issue, why not just buy the building? It would make sense, and then we'd have no leased buildings in the entire city, and it would cost a lot less than $24 million. Leasing is not always a bad thing. Leasing in the short term gives you flexibility and options. The 2012 study, in fact, said leasing was the best option because of the low cost of office space and no capital outlay would be involved. We've heard various straw man arguments regarding leases. One of them goes, imagine if your forefathers leased City Hall for the last 80 years. No one is proposing that we lease for the next 80 years. We're given this false choice. Either go with this plan or lease for the next 80 years. The city leasing versus owning comparison is dishonest. It compares leasing 60,000 square feet on day one against building the 60,000-foot administrative building. Who in their right mind would lease 60,000 square feet on day one when you don't need most of that space for decades? When you do the comparison using the sane option, that is leasing space you need, leasing actually is far cheaper. Another straw man, costs are going up. Costs are going up on everything. If you bond this, other projects will be delayed and their costs will go up. If we're going to go forward with a project this big, shouldn't we have a long-range staffing plan in detail? If it exists, I haven't seen it. There have been no other viable options presented. We've been told no other building in the entire city will work. There have been no head-to-head comparisons, no cost-benefits analysis, nothing. There's no offsets, there's no cost savings. We aren't selling any buildings, we aren't consolidating anything. We were told we would move the Parks Department and utility billing to the new building. Moving utility billing makes no sense. The 2012 study recommended they don't move. It identified no need for them to collaborate with anyone. Their location is great, it's a good parking, easy access, it's very convenient for their customers. Just go down and ask them. We're proposing to vacate a $500,000 building and turn it into storage. In this particular case, ceiling height actually does matter. It would be totally unworkable for storage for the event center. Even if it did work as storage, we'd stop using a $500,000 building as office space and turn it into a very expensive garage. How about the Parks Department building? It's located close to City Hall. It has a great location. It's worth $800,000. The Parks Department likes it. We're making good use of it. We'd clear that building out with no plan for how to use it in the future. Vacating 2 very good and very expensive buildings that are being used efficiently and using them to store our junk doesn't show a lot of business acumen. Let's talk about collaboration. We talk about moving parks to the new building with engineering so they can collaborate and the benefits of that. In moving engineering to the administrative building, we fracture engineering and planning who work together very closely. What are we accomplishing? We're fracturing two departments that work hand in hand and trading that for collaboration with the Parks Department. How are we better off? Let's talk about collaboration with the county. Why would we discuss buying toilet paper together to save money, but then totally abandon the idea of collaborating on this? Our idea of collaboration is to tell the county, hey, we want to stop wasting money leasing, so we're building a new building. We didn't bring you in until after we designed it. And by the way, do you want to waste your money leasing our third floor? What kind of collaboration is that? The cost per square foot is very high as this amount of square footage allocated per employee, and I'm referring to finished square footage. Did anyone notice a straw man about the employees in the space known as a swamp totally disappeared? Maybe that's because they love it down there. Just go down and ask them. Let's talk about the lack of a plan and moving the goalposts. Up until a week ago, the plan was to move parks and utility billing. At the Veto press conference, the mayor said no decisions have been made and we're working on it. Are we building a $25 million building without a concrete plan of how we'll even use it? Don't forget the debt service and the ongoing capital costs we'll have going forward if we build this. On a $25 million building, the capital improvements are not going to be cheap as the years go by. There is no retention or recruitment problem. We've debated ceiling heights and air quality, but in the end, people want to work for the city. Building new is the most expensive option. Just ask our finance director, who said this at the informational meeting on February 23rd, 2016, and I quote, "If you're looking and hinging a decision on is it going to pencil out a net savings to the city, I think clearly it's not if we have a new building," end quote. I want the citizens to know that this is not replacing City Hall. This is a new building in addition to City Hall. Many citizens believe this is a new City Hall. It is not. When they are told this is a new building in addition to City Hall, they are stunned. The era of big government is here. Remember, if you build it, they will come. Once we build this building, which will start mostly vacant, it will be filled with government employees. The taxpayers will have to pay for all of this. This will be the largest expansion of city government in my lifetime. The goal should not be to grow city government. But this proposal is also coming from those who believe that government buildings should cost 50% more than those in the private sector. This is what big government looks like. Some have talked about the dream of a government mall or corridor. Sorry, but that's a nightmare for me. In conclusion, this is a massive expansion of government. It shows no regard for the taxpayer or the citizens. I'm proud of our effort. The citizens want this repealed. They are behind us. Apparently, elected officials are not going to listen. The people are going to have to force this issue. We made the tough decision. We led, and we were overruled. I urge you to sign the petition, carry a petition, make them listen. Thank you.
Councilor, thank you. Folks, apologize. We don't do that here. Sorry, but thank you. Appreciate it. Councilor Stehly.
Earlier tonight, the issue of our campaigns came up, our platform. And each of us here were elected. We each ran with different ideas that we presented to the public. And we, four of us, just came off the campaign trail. Hasn't been that like 4 months ago. And I need to say that as I was running, I pledged to the citizens that I was going to be working to put more money of that second penny towards fixing our streets, maintaining our streets. I also pledged personally that I was going to hold the line on debt. Now, would you put that up there, please? I have a chart that was prepared by Dave Bixler, he is our budget analyst, about the second penny. And as we get that into focus there, we're going to see that the debt service right now coming out of the second penny, which if we hearken back to the days of Loila Hunking, it was for streets, initially implemented for that. Now we have 27% of that as it is now that we are spending, that we are obligating to debt service. I'm very happy about the 57% highways and streets, but I think the citizens of our community, if given the chance to weigh in on that, would want that 57% to be even a larger percentage. We have also been told we have a softening sales tax revenue coming in, and we have heard elements of caution from our finance director, Tracy Turbeck. I'm a cautious person in my own finances, so I think I was elected. I did get elected. I was preaching conservative restraint. So that's why I cast my vote the way I did for this last time around. This has been a contentious issue. We know that. We had the split before we came on board, the 4-4, 2 times with the tie happening with the mayor. And then we come around with this 5-3 thing going on. So it's been a divided issue. We have this petition drive going on right now, and I'm grateful to those people doing that. I've been participating in that. I've had 2 petition drives under my belt. I will tell you, it's a huge feat. And I know that tonight it's probably going to be a done deal that we're going to be past this part of it. But I have been rallying my fellow council members to be open to an advisory vote so that we would help these petitioners out, because they are in a time crunch. And I have severe concerns about how their efforts are going to be respected once they get the signatures. So I am hoping that we would be able to step up and say, you know, this is a big issue for our city. $24 million is no small thing. And I know there are people in our community that think we should be voting on more of these things. I will say we have the event center, and I said to the mayor that I appreciate that we got to vote on that. We have an event center, beautiful event center. We have the new aquatic center that we don't even know how we're going to handle that financially. So we've got things coming around the bend that we're going to have to deal with to be responsible for the citizens. So I think that, to me, the best thing would be to let the citizens weigh in on this. I think that the community would wrap their arms around that if we went that route, and that's my story.
Councilor Stehly, thank you. Thank you for the comments. A roll call vote, please. Oh, wait, Councilor
Could
Kiley?
we just have clarification from
Sure.
Attorney Fifley as to what a no and a yes means?
Attorney Fifley, would you explain to the council what if they were to vote yes, what that means, and if they vote no, what that means? Thank you. Council Vice Chair Kiley, it's a good idea. Thank you.
The pending motion is a motion to approve ordinance number 83-16. Essentially, you are doing a second vote on what was done the last time, where it would repeal the ordinance authorizing the sale and appropriation of sales tax revenue bonds to fund and construct the new city administration building. So a yes vote is in favor of a repeal, which would vote to override a veto, to put it in common nomenclature, and a no vote would be the opposite, in that you are voting against the repeal ordinance.
Councilors, everybody understand that?
Again, I'm sorry, Mayor, and it would take 6 yes votes to override the veto.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Council Vice Chair Kiley, thank you for that as well. A roll call vote, please.
Council Member Stehly?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
No.
Kylie?
No.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
No.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
That is failed 5-3. Is that the way to say it, David? Council, that is failed 5-3. Item 37.